If the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say this was their finest hour.
We stand for Queen,
country, and video games. BRB UK.
Worse teeth,
better accents.
Hello and indeed, oi oi, and welcome to the Big Red Barrel UK podcast, episode 243.5. My name is Coleman. Hi! And today, you get an extra little bit of BRB goodness for you, you cheeky little monkeys. And once again, it is Tim doing another interview. This time, it will be with a man returning to the show, much like the last time we did one of these. And that person returning to the show is Mr. Action Man himself, Dan Sheridan, former communication bloke from EA and SEGA, and now he's the communications manager over at nDreams, who make the awesome VR games, and all-round nice dude. So yes, today they'll be talking about Mr. Sheridan's progression through his career since the last time he was on the show, and also all the cool things that have come out from nDreams and the history of the company, and lastly the brand new game Bloody Zombies, which is an excellent brawler you should be checking out. There'll be more information on how to do so at the end of this show, but until then, stand by for Timmy Bibble Hibbs talking to Mr. Action Dan Sheridan after this noise.
I am back again with another interview. It's me, Tim, in case that was too much of an out there thing. People don't know me. If you don't know me by now, then you might never. But someone else that you might know by now, but maybe not know exactly where he's coming from at the moment, and we'll come back to that in a second. But a returning guest, Mr. Dan Sheridan. Welcome back, sir.
Hello. It's great to be back. It's been a while. I think it's been maybe a Dragon Age or two ago since I last came on.
I think it wasn't necessarily the first game that we encountered each other on, possibly, but definitely I first encountered you when we first crossed paths when you were with EA, sir, as well, back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, back in the 10-year stint almost at EA, from The Sims 2 all the way to I think I'd left just before Star Wars Battlefront came out, so yeah, quite a while.
Quite a period, and basically people may have known you from that time as EA Action Man, as your handle was on Twitter and stuff, basically back then.
Yeah.
So that they might recognise you from that. And I think we first crossed paths, I think, if I'm correct, at the Need for Speed Hot Pursuit event that you organised.
Was that the one with real cars?
Yes, that was the one with the Porsches being chased by Lamborghini police cars.
And it's quite funny you should mention that, because the person who took over from me as community manager now at EA, Mr. Lee Williams,
yes,
I think that was his first event that he'd ever been to as well, because he used to write for a website, and I seem to remember him actually winning one of the little challenges.
Yes, and he won a console.
He won a console, and now almost 7 years or so later, he's working in community at the company, which is pretty cool.
Well, yeah, also, I mean, I think I spoke to him, I think we had him on the show at one point, and I think I said to him that that event proved to me that he was, a worthy person to be doing the job that he is now. He is very good at driving games, and he does really like his arcade driving games. So yeah, I think he landed on his feet quite well there, but yeah.
He also likes driving. I don't know if you've seen, he does like
true.
Sunday Drive YouTube thing, which is quite cool to watch.
Okay, no, I haven't seen that. I have to check that out, actually.
Check it out.
That was the first time I met Lee as well, basically. So yeah, that was a meeting point for all of us. So there you go. But yeah, since that time as well, and I'm not sure that we had you on the show in your next reincarnation in the video game world. I'm not sure if we did or we didn't. Do we have you on while you were at SEGA?
Don't think we did. I think we had chats at various events. Actually, I was due to come on one of your podcasts that you were doing live from EGX.
Right, yes.
And I think I had to be somewhere, and the timings just didn't work out for me. But I think I was due to appear.
Right. I remember us doing some Sonic video stuff for you and getting Sonic hats in exchange and stuff like that. But yeah, I still have my Sonic hat to this day, so there you go.
I still have my Sonic hat. I think I've got two. I think I had the one that I used to wear all the time, and now I have like a spare one in a bag that I wanted to preserve, because the one that I used to wear all the time, underneath your neck there was like a little Velcro strap, and it probably had a wearability of maybe 2 wears before the Velcro just pinged off. So I'd be there in front of a camera talking to the cameraman, and then all of a sudden it'd be like, and I'd be like, oh, not again. And the amount of takes we had to do, and in the end we just left it, and if it pinged, and tried not to laugh. It's one of those cool things that you do.
Right, and so you've left Sega, but like a phoenix from the flames, you have arisen again in the world of video games, and this time you find yourself at nDreams.
Yeah, that's correct. Slight change of career. So I'm now communications manager for the studio. So anything that you see going out of our social channels, my team covers. I have a team, so I've got Jenny, who is the community manager, looks after all of nDreams community, which is cool, and manages social media and talking on forums and loads of cool stuff, being at events, interacting with the community.
Jenny's lovely. We know her from her time at Yuki as well, and she was always nice to us there and stuff as well.
Yeah.
We were going to do some events and stuff. Anyway, but yeah, nice lady. But yeah, so how does your role differ these days to what you used to do to what you're doing now? Is it you're doing more with a smaller company, or are you doing stuff on a slightly smaller scale in general type thing, would you say?
I would say the role is very different. So I guess think of it in your traditional PR sense. So I'm looking after interactions with press, I'm managing, the announcement of games, but I'm also strategically looking at, how we deal as a company with the community. And nDreams is now the UK's biggest developer and publisher of VR titles, and VR is quite a new technology.
Yeah.
We've got the Vive, the Oculus, the PlayStation VR, loads of other things popping up around us. And for me, it's quite exciting because VR is a very interesting technology. And traditionally, coming from like a console PC background, I was at EG Express the other week doing demos. And about 85% of people who came to play our games hadn't experienced VR before.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's a very different experience to say, hey, here's a gamepad and play a shooter game or a racing game, because you know the gamepad and you just sit down, and even if you don't, the controls are there. But with VR, it's like, right, have you used VR before? No, okay, right, this is a headset. I'm going to put it on your head. I'm going to adjust it. Let me know if you feel alright. If you feel queasy, I'll take it off your head, because there's, motion sickness, and you just need to be really mindful of a person first jumping into the virtual world. And then you give them controllers, and then all of a sudden they can see their hands and they're interacting with the world, and they completely forget that they're in a expo, and they just think they're fully immersed in this world. And that's one of the great things about the joys about VR is, getting somebody from the real world into the virtual world and then seeing them fully immersed in the space.
That must be difficult, because I know just from a sort of showing, friends and family that have come around to see because I got a PSVR, and just showing that off to people, I find it difficult, especially when they're first seeing it, because they've got no point of reference to whether it's sitting on their head correctly and stuff like that type of thing. So, as you say, that must be something you have to be quite careful and mindful of to make sure that you're getting right for each person that comes through, basically.
It's almost like you have to guide them through the experience. So you put the headset on their head, and as you put the headset on their head, the tracking is usually set up or it's configured for somebody of an average height.
Yeah.
So you're asking them in the VR space, can you see a menu in front of you? And then the head might be looking down at the floor, and then they look up and they're like, oh yeah, I can see the menu. Usually on some of the VR systems, there's a button somewhere on the control. I think on the PSVR, it's like the options button, and that recenters the view. And the Vive has the same thing, and the Oculus has the same thing for recentering the view. And once someone's recentered the view, the tracking's working, and they're looking around, and it's almost instinctively they know how to react within the world around them. And then they can see the controllers like in the distance, and you're like, right, hold your hands out, I'm now going to put the controllers on your hands. And then they're looking around with their hands, and it's kind of Minority Report a little bit, like looking at someone moving within the virtual space, and you can kind of see on screen how they're reacting, and then people watching can see on screen if you've got a TV set up what they're doing, and it usually draws in a crowd because you see this person with this headset on, waving their arms around you, like, what the hell are they doing? And then you look on screen, and it kind of translates what they're doing, gives you a sense, but it makes you want to try it for yourself, I think, and that's one thing that people in VR, I guess, who are working in VR need to do is, as an industry, we need to be educating people, what is VR and what's so great about it, and if everyone got together and does that, I think, more people would buy into the technology.
I had a few demos on the HTC Vive, but I've played a bit more on the Oculus, and then I own a PSVR. But it must be awkward because, as you say, you tailor make it to, the average height and stuff, but a lot of them will do, or to my knowledge, the Oculus and the PSVR, both will do the kind of measuring the distance between your eyes, and that does seem to make a difference to the clarity and stuff like that. You might not always be able to give someone the optimum experience when you're demoing a game to them. Is that something you try and sort of circumnavigate by telling them that information, or you just try and immerse them in the experience and go from there, basically?
Usually I ask someone, have you used VR before? Or if they've used VR, have they used the controllers? For example, with the Oculus, the touch controllers came afterwards. So everyone was using an Xbox One controller pad to begin with. And it's a guided experience. You have to ask them, I'll put it on your head. If it looks blurry, let me know. You can do things to the headset to adjust it. You can move the lenses further away, closer, depending on their eyesight. Some work if they're wearing glasses, for example. Some work better with glasses. There's ways to put the headset on different if someone's wearing glasses versus someone who doesn't wear glasses. And then you've got some little dials and things where you can, adjust the focus and tweak it. And first off, before you even boot the game, you just go into a neutral area and just make sure the person is completely comfortable, everything looks clear, and as long as they're happy and they give you the thumbs up, then you tell them that you're about to boot into the game and make them fully aware of what's going to happen, because sometimes it can be quite daunting. For example, it'd be really weird if you made a game and your menu screen was right high up looking down over traffic. You could maybe see people get a bit unbalanced and a bit unnervy, so you want to ease them into the experience.
Yeah, some of the first VR experiences I tried that were games that were generally been ported across, that was something they seemed to learn about the UI, that you couldn't have it in certain places and you couldn't have it in the traditional places you had it in other games, because it meant that the screens were sat up right in your face and stuff as well, basically. So yeah, it's a bit more kind of, a new way of learning how to design UI in VR, basically.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I mean, for me, traditionally I've been working for publishers, and now I'm working with a development studio and other developers, and seeing the problems what they have to overcome to get games to work in VR. It's quite eye-opening in some respects, in terms of where things are positioned, where things are placed, making sure they account for things like motion sickness, and that's really interesting. But everyone's trying to make the best possible experience, and it's really cool for me. I mean, game development's quite relevant to my interests anyway, and I'm got that little geeky boy 7-year-old me inside going, I can see how games are made, the magic is real.
But for me, this is the most interesting time in the game development cycle. I find it less interesting when they've got all the elements of a first-person shooter locked down and they're kind of just pumping out another one of those games. I find this area where we're learning our new way round as sort of a technology and how to interact with it and all that sort of thing. I find that fascinating, and people solving the problems that other people have encountered in, say, motion and movement within a game, within a VR game and stuff like that. Every game has almost, a new and interesting perspective to offer on VR, basically, at the moment, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sure we're going to talk about it in this interview. Our latest game that we're publishing, a game called Bloody Zombies. People traditionally think of VR as first-person, fully immersed experiences, and what the studio are trying to do with Bloody Zombies is take a traditional genre, i.e. a 2D platform game, and make the VR player feel actually immersed within the world.
We will definitely get very much into Bloody Zombies in a second, but going back to kind of a bit more of the history of nDreams for anyone that isn't completely aware of that as well. They've always been innovators in interesting spaces, so it wasn't that surprising that they moved into VR, having kind of first cut their teeth in PlayStation Home, or at least that's where I first came across the company.
Yeah. back in 2006, nDreams started pretty much as a one-man indie team, and that was our founder and CEO, Patrick. He was the creative director at Eidos, working on games like Tomb Raider before he set up the company, and he's kind of trying to find his feet as an indie studio, and it kind of, the first experience was released in 2009 on the PlayStation Home.
Was that Zai? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, that was Zai. I think it was played by about 650,000 people, and that was, kicked off a huge part of nDreams' history, because then they started to develop more games and experiences within this home platform, and actually had quite a lot of success, massive success with something called Aurora. During its lifespan, it had something like about over 20 million visits. So on that particular on that particular platform, nDreams was one of the leaders publishing on the PlayStation Home platform until I think it ceased around 2015.
From what I know of it as well, they were one of the kind of leading developers making actual games within that environment, which was definitely a different and interesting environment to go in. But then not too surprising that they then sort of transitioned into VR. I guess one with it being, another emergent and different technology that are obviously of interest, but I guess the timing just worked out right for there, basically. VR was coming into an ascendancy just as PlayStation Home was wrapping up, basically.
Yeah, I think it was about 2013 when I guess Patrick refers to it as like the year zero, and they first had the experience of putting on a VR headset, and it felt really cool, and instantly he knew that he wanted to be a part of that journey. And I think it was in September they kind of released one of their first tech demos, a title called Skydiving, and it was on the Oculus Rift, and it's actually today one of the most downloaded VR demos available.
Oh, okay.
Don't know if you've seen it. It's really cool.
I've heard of it. I haven't actually played it myself, basically. But
yeah, you just I've not played it yet, but I hear lots of great things. And one of the funniest things about working in a game development studio that's working in VR, you just look up and you look around you and people have got VR headsets on and they're doing things, and they're in meeting rooms, or they're trying to show prototypes off to various people, and you just hear laughter and you hear enthusiasm and enjoyment, and it's just so refreshing to be within a development environment where you experience all of these sounds and people getting it. It makes you want to get off your chair and go and see what's
happening and go and join in.
go and see what's happening and go and join in. But yeah, so that skydiving thing was quite cool. I think they had some of the promotional activities on like bungee ropes, wearing a VR headset and like experiencing what it's like to like free fall. It's kind of cool.
That's quite cool.
And then after that it was like, wow, this is cool, we need to do more of this stuff. So VR development was kind of ramped up.
So yeah, you've done stuff for, a lot of different platforms now. You did a Gunner game for Samsung Gear VR, I think it was?
Yeah, so Samsung Gear VR Gunner, it's a shooter title, but for mobile, because mobile doesn't have the tracking tech that, say, a Vive or Oculus or PSVR has. It works on the movement of your head, and a lot of games out there relied on head movements to be able to do the controls. So Gunner, a little bit narrative driven. Essentially, you are a gunner in a starship doing lots of different missions, and there's enemies coming at you, and you're using your head to shoot. So wherever you move your head, pretty much, that's where the direction of the fire goes. And it's quite good. It's quite cool. For the time, it was quite cool, and it was quite good to see people's reaction, and then from there moved on to a title like Perfect Beach.
And I'm not sure, but is that one of the elements of Perfect that's on PSVR now as well, basically?
Yeah, so Perfect on PSVR now was born from Perfect Beach. It was like, can we make a game/experience that, after a hard day at the office, you want to come and you want to chill, kick back.
Nice chill out.
Sit your feet and just chill on a beach, listen some tunes, and just take in the world around you. Because VR is such like an immersive medium, it allows you to do that. Now, Perfect kind of took it one step further, and the game's got 3 locations. There's a beach, there's like a Rocky Mountain wilderness, and then there's like a snowy scene, which is for the Northern Lights, and then there's a nighttime version of each of those locations. And the Northern Lights one, apparently, I've been told it's quite correct in terms of like how it all appears. Cool. And then within those worlds, there's 3 different locations that you can kind of teleport around and experience those locations. And like if you've got motion controls on, say, the Oculus, hold them out in front of you on the beach, like little butterflies will come and land on them, and then you can kind of like flick your hand away and they'll disappear, and it's all quite tranquil and quite relaxed.
That sounds quite nice.
One thing that I really like, and we saw a lot of people at Res, because we had the game at Res, people picking up stones and skimming them, and that's one of the other cool things about VR, which you kind of learn about, is I guess it's the same with the Wii, where you have the strap to make sure people don't throw the controllers. Some people do get really into it, and they really go for the 7 stone skim, 7 hop skim, and the controller may fly out of their hands.
Yes, I did see you getting quite worried about one child skimming stones at Res, in fact, when he was doing it just a bit too close to the presumably quite expensive TV.
Yeah, it's like, can you just stand back?
Step back a bit, maybe, please.
Come back to reality. You are in a game expo, you're not really on a beach. But that's the power of VR. It makes you feel like you're actually there, and it's believable. Which it's great to see. I love, one of the coolest things about my new job is seeing how people interact with VR, and I know how I interact with it myself through the various headsets and all of the games that we get to play at work, and it's so cool. Like, it makes your job feel more exciting a little bit versus traditional gaming.
Yeah, you're kind of on a cutting edge of technology, and it's nice to show things to people that they hadn't seen anything like that before as well. Like you say, there's so many people that hadn't ever used VR before, and giving them their first VR experience must be quite a nice thrill.
Yeah, for sure. And they take off the headset and they're like, wow, that's so cool. You give them like a few minutes, make sure that they're all right, and then they go off thinking, wow, I need to get invested in VR, or they'll queue up again. And sometimes at Res we saw maybe about 4 or 5 people over the course of the weekend just kept coming back because they loved it so much, which is great.
That's always good to see. One of the other sort of major titles you've released so far on VR was the Assembly as well. So that was a bit more story driven. Am I right to say I know it's on PSVR, but was that on everything else as well? Pretty much, all the major sort of VR platforms, HTC Vive, and was it on Oculus as well?
It was on Oculus as well,
right. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Just quickly, what was the kind of idea behind the Assembly as well then?
So the Assembly is, like you say, it's a first-person interactive story. It's told from the perspective of 2 scientists known in a mysterious organization known as the Assembly. They've been conducting secret underground experiments, and something's happened. You go in there, you go in as one of these scientists, and you're trying to uncover what's actually happening and get more information. And then you kind of switch to the other scientists coming at it from a different angle. You start to uncover what happens, and I think it's really cool as a VR experience because there's lots of different ways to play. You can have free movement, or you can have like a point and click jump around, or you can use the touch controls to open and close doors, or open and close drawers and find clues. And one thing that I really, if you've not played the game before, you should go and check it out. I think it was kind of overlooked a little bit in the grand scheme of VR games, but if you get the opportunity, go and check it out. There's clues like around on walls, so that there might be like some numbers or something, or you read through some emails on a screen and it's got like some numbers and you piece together the clues, and they might be a key code to open a door, or something that you might need to remember later on through your playtime.
I do like a good mystery, so yeah, that sounds intriguing at least.
There's puzzles to solve as well. So you spend your time like wandering around looking for things and opening doors and like trying to find objects to interact with, and it's quite well thought out for a game, and especially for VR to give if you're looking for an experience that you want to last for 4, 5, 6 hours or something. This is the game. This is the game to really
good
go
one
for.
to get stuck into. Now, speaking of which, let's get further stuck into your more recently announced game, Bloody Zombies. So this is the one that's on the way. Now, I find this intriguing on a couple of accounts. One, it does seem that the nDreams is almost deliberately picking very different genres and kind of, is it fair to say, experimenting and or is it just simply a case of you coming up with a new concept and running with it because it sounds like an interesting thing to do?
Well, Bloody Zombies is an interesting one. It's actually nDreams is publishing this game, so another developer called
I wasn't aware of that. Right.
Called Paw Print Games, and they're based in Chester They're
Okay.
actually developing it, and they were looking for a publisher, and their co-founder, one of their co-founders, a guy called Anthony White, contacted our VP of publishing through LinkedIn and kind of, pitched the game to us through those channels. And then, as video games happen and they're prototypes and people are always pitching ideas all of the time, conversations just moved on, and we liked that they were passionate about VR. We liked the genre. We liked their enthusiasm and how they were trying to do something different with VR. That so a couple of things with this game. It actually brings people together.
That's one of the things I find most intriguing about the game, because not many VR games seem to be doing this at the moment.
So, for example, you mentioned it earlier, you've got a PSVR, and you want to show people what the VR is all about. Well, in this particular game, you at home, you could play Bloody Zombies in VR, but your friends on the couch can also join you, so you can have up to 3 other players, so 4 players in total. So you could play in VR, and they could play non-VR through the social screen on PlayStation 4, or if you had an Oculus or if you had a Vive, it would work similar way. Your friends would play on the monitor and you would play in VR. And then another cool feature is there was going to be online co-op.
Okay.
So if you had a VR, you showed it to your friend, and they're like, "All right, this is cool. I'm gonna get home tonight. I'm gonna boot up my PSVR or whatever system they've got." They will then actually be able to join you in that game.
Okay, cool.
And maybe they've got a friend sat next to them who doesn't have VR but wants to play with them. So you could have 2 VR players online and 2 non-VR players, or you could have all 4 VR players together, or you could just play it not in VR.
Well, I find that very interesting because the Playroom stuff that they had on PSVR is the only real example I've seen where you can have the PSVR player interacting with other players through the same console, basically. And as much as I like VR, I'm kind of conscious of the fact that it can only entertain one person at once type thing, and it to the exclusion of everyone else in the room. So it's nice that this is kind of dialing that back a bit and re-including other people, basically.
Yeah, and that's one of the key things we're trying to do. We're trying to bring players together, either online or on the couch. And we think we've got something quite special with this, and particularly with the genre as well. You can still have that moment where you show the VR to your friends, but whilst they're experiencing it, you can experience
everyone else can join in
the game as well, and we think that's quite special. And one thing I've heard from talking to the community is when they're playing online games, sometimes they struggle to find other people to play with.
Yeah, that can be a problem.
So with this being a 4-player co-op, you're probably always going to have someone to play. Equally, you could play the game on your own. The game's balanced for solo play as well.
But this type of just forces in here, because we haven't really mentioned it's a kind of side-scrolling brawler type thing, which is almost an odd fit for VR type thing. But why do you think this will work, and what do you think sort of VR brings to the table with this type of game?
Yeah, so Bloody Zombies, it's a co-op brawler. It's inspired by the likes of Streets of Rage, Final Fight, and what we're trying to, do with this game is, challenge what VR is and what VR is in terms of, people's perception of what it should be. People think, oh, a VR game, it must be first person, must be fully immersive. This is immersive in the sense that when you put on the VR headset, you're transported into almost like what we're calling a diorama viewpoint, almost like a doll's house. So you can see the level open up around you. You're fully immersed into level. You can look over your character that you're playing, and you can look beneath and look around, and you can spot things as they happen, so you can provide tactical support to your fellow players.
Okay.
The VR player, what's kind of cool on this, if you're playing with the VR player, is they're denoted by having a little VR headset on the character as you...
Oh, I quite like that. That's nice.
as you're brawling for with the zombies. The other cool thing, you might have seen in our trailer, you can warn your friends of impending doom. So there's a bit towards the end of our trailer where there's this giant spinning, mashing wheel coming down over what looks a bit like Tower Bridge. And, the VR player has got the ability to kind of look up and spot these things and be like, hey guys, you need to move out of the way. Yeah, we're fighting zombies and we need to get through the next stage, but there's a giant thing, it's coming up. And what that allows you to do, you can work as a team cooperatively with your friends. You can juggle zombies in the air and push them into these obstacles and watch them get ground up and get some points for team play, and you're rewarded for that, which is kind of cool to see.
It's got a fun art style as well. I think the kind of cel-shaded look will actually work really well in VR as well, no?
Yeah, I mean, the art style is kind of unique. The setting is London, or, inspired
Yay,
by...
hometown!
Inspired by London. It's not, exact street for street, but as you're playing, as you're playing through, you will see some distinct nods to...
You've got Big Ben, you've got the London Underground in the background, and
Tower Bridge.
Bridge, and police cars, and red buses, and... We like big red buses here, that's good.
And yeah, we've got some it's like internal environments as well. So there's a museum. It looks a bit like Trafalgar Square as you're going along, and then you get into this museum, which is kind of cool, a bit like the Natural History Museum maybe, which within those environments as well, there's more things to do, like the VR player can spot secrets or guide people to climb up a rope, or friends to climb up a rope to like get one-ups and health, and it's quite cool. Or we think it's quite cool anyway.
Well, who doesn't want to be beating up zombies with giant cricket bats as well? Like any good Englishman should do.
The weapons that you get. So there's a variety of weapons. I mean, in the trailer, I think we've shown off maybe 4 or 5. So there's a guitar which you can charge up over time, and there's like a special melee effect. There's a pipe. Cricket bat is quite a cool iconic thing, it's something that sometimes people...
Is it all melee-based combat then, or is there going to be sort of projectile-based stuff as well? Or
there is some weapons, a bit like a shuriken type thing, where you throw it like a ninja blade type thing, but the combat is freeform combat, so you go through, you get chainable combos, there's abilities that you can pick up as you progress through the level. So in the first level you get taught how to use an ability, and then you can chain skills together and combos, and then unlock more abilities as you go through. We've got quite a lot to show everybody as we go through the campaign on this. We've not announced the release date, so what you see in our trailer, I think you see 1 level within the trailer with content for that level, but there's so many more varieties of zombies, so many more varieties of bosses, weapons, things that you can do. There's lots of variety there, and I think if you're a brawler fan, you see familiar combat. We want to make this game accessible, so we want it easy to pick up, but it's quite difficult to master. So especially if you're a brawler fan, the ability to have advanced combos is there, but equally, if you're new to the genre, you can learn as you go on. So that's one of the cool things.
Definitely sounds intriguing. And even though you're not talking about a release date yet, are we expecting it this year sometime, basically?
Yeah, it's coming in 2017, and we are doing a hands-on in the United Kingdom.
First playable demo, is this? Or
First playable demo. We'll have 2 levels. We'll have the London level, which you may have seen in the trailer, and we'll also have an internal level, which is the museum level, which I talked about, which has some puzzles and different varieties of bosses within it. And yeah, we'll be at MCM London Comic Con towards the end of May. I think it's the bank holiday weekend.
Okay.
And we'll be there Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Come on, players. Good.
Well, yeah, people can get their hands on and get to play the game. Also, I will point out that my ever-loving wife also got to come and play a bit of it early, and has talked about it on the most recent Geek Speak. So if anyone wants some more details of Bloody Zombies, you can go and listen to that there as well. For now, Dan, thank you very much for rejoining us on the podcast again. Thank you very much for catching us up on all your movements, your journey onto nDreams. And yeah, thank you very much for filling us in on Bloody Zombies as well.
Thanks very much for having me back, and hopefully I can come back again in the near future.
You are always welcome, sir. Always welcome. Thank you very much, and yeah, keep on dreaming them nDreams.
I'm an nDreamer for life now.
Thanks a lot, sir. We'll see you soon.
Alright, cheerio.
Action Dan, the greatest hero of them all! Speaking of which, you're probably figuring out, that there Dan bloke, how the hell do I get in contact with him? He who is not our Dan, but a different Dan. Well, you could probably go on Twitter and look up the handle, This Is Action Man, all one word. That will get you Mr. Dan Sheridan. Also, if you want to check out nDreams, they've got a Twitter too. It's nDreams VR. Again, all one word. But as well as their Twitter, you probably want to check out the website nDreams.com, because if you go there, then you can look up Bloody Zombies and the other titles mentioned in this here show. But we will be back to normal business on Friday with a regularly scheduled episode 244. I had to actually think there. God damn, we're so close to 250 and I've not planned anything. We've not planned anything. You don't realise how maddening this is. But we do urge you to go over to BigRedBarel.com where you can check out more fine podcasts just like this one. There's Geek Speak. I believe they got an extra episode coming up pretty soon as well. We got the Boom, we got the Flicks, we got the Burbcast, all the great shows you love. But also, you can go check out all the articles and the videos that are available as well, and maybe go on the forums and give us a shout on there. But you don't have to just stick around on the forums to say hello. You can also do it via Twitter, which is @BigRedBarel. You can also go onto our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/BigRedBarel. Or if you're feeling real kooky, you could go over to YouTube. Big Red Barrel TV is the username. All our episodes go up on YouTube because for some reason people wanted that. Now they have it. It's a small amount of people, but they have it because we love you and we're looking out for you. Yeah, don't say we didn't do anything for you. Give you half episode, give you videos on YouTube. What more do you want? Anyway, this has been episode 243.5 of the Big Red Barrel UK podcast. Like I said, back to normal Friday. And for this week, I have been Coleman. That was a Tim. That was a Dan Sheridan. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye!